What's up, y'all, and welcome to the Homie Trinity, where today E, Ren, and myself are going to focus on our top five cartoons from the 80s. Yeah, we're going back, y'all.
Let's
You know,
go.
if this grade don't tell you already, we are old and we are cartoon heads. As you know, E and Ren are comic book heads. So we're gonna go through our top five. So I'm gonna fall back and I'll let E start us off and give us his list.
All right, so for the Trinity top five, the way we're going to do this is Ren's going to give five. I'm going to give my five. Royce will give his five, and we'll kind of work our way down through the list. So, Ren, you're going to be up first, man. And at number five for you, you had.
Mask. Like, this was the joint, people. Like, when you were a regular person, you could hop in your whip or vehicle and it would transform into something that you could actually manipulate. Man, that was like the joy for me all day long. And my mom, again, love her to pieces. Every time it was a new character that came out and I had like a good report card, lady would go out and get me a brand new Mask toy. That's why your boy had straight A's, because I knew what time it was. So I had all of them joints, man. Like, the
The green
Camaro.
motorcycle, yo, to
Oh,
turn into the
Condor.
helicopter.
That joint stayed in my pocket forever, B. I would never let people come by and be like, yo, what is that? Like, yo, get your hands off my Condor, yo. Like, nah, don't touch Condor. But like the Rhino with the truck, like that was a really dope cartoon. I wish they had kept that one going longer than it did, man. And it would be cool to see a movie about Mask, but Mask definitely top five for me.
Well, I think Mask kind of came up against one that all of us have in our top five, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, man. But there was the combination of it kind of all hit at the same time, and you had Mask, and then you had two other ones, and we'll talk about those when we get to one of these other ones we have, man. But yeah, Mask was, like I said, man, that green motorcycle, yo. I think every kid that had that one, that was the favorite one
Condor,
of
man.
all of them, yo. You know what I'm saying? So, all right, so for me, my number five pick, man. It's Dungeons and Dragons, yo. Like
Mhm.
I never played the game or anything like that. I mean, at the time when we're talking about in the 80s, if you played this game, y'all have seen Stranger Things. Y'all know what the deal is. You know what I'm saying? They did not play around with the whole Dungeons and Dragons thing, but just the way that the art was, the way that the story and everything along those lines, and it was like this continuous story every Saturday morning. Like that was one of those ones where, regardless of what I watched, Dungeons and Dragons was definitely going to be one of the ones that I had to get my eyes on every Saturday morning. So yeah, Dungeons and Dragons is number five for me.
Definitely a dope one. I didn't watch that one as much though, for whatever reason, because I played it. Like on Halborn Street, we would play it because like my cousin Sean and Imani, they would all play going to Dale High Street and they'd play it, and I would get into it. My mom wasn't too keen on Dungeon Dragons because it was magics and dragons and Christian ladies think
The
it's
devil.
devil. But definitely was a dope show back in the day. And if you get a chance to play, it was dope, man. Like you had to use your imagination. You had to come up with campaigns. Like cats had to get together in a room and be creative, not like on their
Write your own
phones.
story.
Right. So it was very cool in terms of like socialization skills, being imaginative and creative, and then just getting out of your everyday world, man. It was an experience. So I imagine the cartoon was probably as dope, but I played the game more than anything.
Never played it. Never played it. Never played it.
All right,
My
so for Royce here coming in now, we have his number five pick.
my five is just like Renee. It's Mask. Yeah, you couldn't beat it, man. It just like Ren said. Your parents take you. I remember going to Roses or what was the
Roses.
other one? Aim.
Ames.
Wow.
And you would just run down the aisle, man. You just look for that cardboard with the plastic, and you just looking at it, and you just got to get it, and you just begging. And if you touch too many toys, your mama smack you in the back of the head. Boy, I done told you, don't come in here looking like a fool.
You can only get one.
You can only get one, and you would sit there and you'd have like 10 different characters on the floor trying to pick the one that you wanted that you didn't have. And Renee had a bunch, and maybe I just go over there and play with his, but Renee was very stingy. He wouldn't let you play with his. So you had to get your own. You get the Camaro, or you get the Rhino or whatever. You'd be like, well, me and Renee can share. And Renee be like, no, man, don't touch my stuff, Hoss. You got to get your own. So it was always a blast to play with Mass. So that's my number 5. So.
All right, so moving into number 4 here, Ren's number 4.
And the Masters of the Universe.
Yo, who didn't watch He-Man and the Masters of the Universe? Yo? Like this,
you didn't use a sucker.
Right, this had your barbarian walking around with a double identity. You had your punk ass like Orko friend in your ear whining and crazy all the time. You had the chicks in furry suits, man. You had the dope like villain who was actual skeleton. Name was Skeletor. Yo, like it had everything you wanted: action, drama, good dialogue for the 80s. Now it's cheesy, but back then you didn't know any better, man. Like all you wanted to do was see Prince Adam turn into He-Man and fight to the death. But I was a Skeletor fan, and I was kind of disgusted he didn't win more often. But He-Man definitely was a treat for me, especially like Christmas. I remember when I got like He-Man on Battle Cat, yo. Like that was Yo, I had all them joints, man. Like that's one of my probably biggest regrets that I didn't keep all of my 80s toys. Cause like Roy said, I wasn't stingy, I was meticulous with my stuff. I had to like I kept all the weapons, the cardboard like cutout profiles, like it was all like perfectly set up. So that's one of the things I wish I probably had just kept for nostalgia's sake. But
so we're going with meticulous. Okay.
Meticulous is the new word for OCD.
I don't want you messing up the points, losing the weapons, or breaking the thumb. But
I think the dope part about like the He-Man joints was, man, like you could actually like battle wound these dudes because the arm just fell off and you just snap the joint right back on. You know what I'm saying?
Warp limbs. What was the boy's name with the you could hit him in his was it He-Man? He had to hit him in his chest like little action joint and be like
up. It would spin, yep.
Man.
And then you had, what was it, Man of Arms or whatever the case may be. Who was the dude that had the spinner on the top?
Yeah,
the face would change. And I mean, a lot of the
daggone you could like push down, he would squat and then would like ram you. What was his name, man? I forgot his name. Anyway, I had all them joints, man. The
and
one
see, like that's the thing about the cartoons though back in the day is that the marketing was phenomenal because you watched the cartoons.
Oh yeah,
had the toy.
Yep. It was on
Definitely, yeah. Skeletor was my dude, man. He had Panther. Yep. Like I never got that one, so that was a regret from back in the day. But He-Man, man, golly, you can just hear the song, man. Castle Grayskull, like those are great times in the living room, man. I have missions. It would be crazy.
All of us. Anytime you got like the long cardboard from like the paper towels, whatever the case may be, put it up. By the power of Grayskull.
By the power of Grayskull.
He was in the backyard carving up wood branches, trying to make himself a sword. Yo. The 80s were the best, man. The best.
All right, so moving into my number 4. Thundercats, yo. I mean, for me, this was probably, I think the one reason why I always will remember Thundercats, man, when it first came out was it was a little bit darker than some of the other cartoons. You know what I'm saying, that were out at the time. But it was just, I don't know, man, like Mumra, and I mean, just the whole. I mean, it was a great cartoon, man. I mean, they tried to make a comeback a few years ago, man. It kind of fell flat. But nah, dude, like Thundercats is just one of those ones, man. And I mean, the thing about like 80s cartoons and stuff like that, though, for us, man, it's the opening credits, dude. Like every single joint had its own song. Every single joint had, you know what I'm saying? And we had a bunch, y'all have to understand that we did not include in our top 5 because you only get 5. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, we had some
great stuff,
bangers that we were talking about. But yeah, for me, man, number 4 was Thundercats. Yo, had to have it. Had to have it.
All right.
All right. So for Royce, now we are moving into his number 4 pick.
By the power of Grayskull.
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And Renee forgot the key dude. Do you remember Trap Jaw?
You would be the one to bring that name up.
Man,
Trap Jaw.
that
You
dude was
had
scary as
Beast
crap,
Man.
yo.
Yeah, he was always shivering and just like a punk, man. What you had? You had Beast Man. You had it was just so many characters, man. Adam's, his sister. You had the sorceress. I mean, you just had Triclops. Remember that dude had the green helmet right there with the one eye right there?
This dude
You
crazy. He trap jaw. That dude walking around with a bear trap on his face, yo.
On his
yeah,
face.
man. Yeah, exactly, man. Ram Man. That was the dude you pushed down.
That's who it
That
was.
was the
That's
dude you pushed down. That dude, yep. Man, you couldn't go, man. You couldn't. But Trap Jaw, man. Trap Jaw he was such a punk, man. That Jay was so hilarious.
That trap jaw. Wow.
He-Man was a joint, though. He-Man was a joint. All right.
Love it.
Keep
So
it moving.
moving
Keep it
in
moving.
now, we're gonna go ahead and run in now to we're in the top 3 range here now.
He covered it. Thundercats. I mean, can't really go wrong. I'm more of a feline person than I am a canine person, so Thundercats works perfectly for me. Lion-O, even though I'm a big Lion fan, wasn't my favorite character. It was Panthro.
As was it everybody. Nunchucks, dude.
Everybody.
Yeah, that was my dude. Like, one, he was the black dude, obviously. Like, he was like, how you have a black cat but make him gray? That's a whole different story. But yeah, and he was like, he was Grandpa Huxtable's voice, yo.
Was he really?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, yo.
Yeah, so Panther was my dude, but you couldn't tell me you didn't want one of those like Sword of Omens, yo. Like, if I start a sword collection as an old person, the first one will be the Sword of Omens. I promise you, B.
We already had this conversation. You're not allowed to have a sword collection.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Okay, anyway, I'm gonna have to do this in secret. Have a secret stash of swords, like John Wick. buried into the house, yo, with some gold coins. But nah, man, Thundercats was off the chain. Like, cats came from a different planet. They came on Earth, Middle Earth, whatever the case. They had to fight this dude, Mumra. Like, Mumra was ill too. Like, we had like,
Mumra was my dude.
Heroes and villains that like corresponded well with their counterparts, man. And you can't tell me the 80s didn't have like just all around dope stuff. So
the first time that you saw him change, though, dude, like from this weakling into what he is, you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, what? You know what I'm saying? Mumra was one of them dudes.
Man, you remember that episode where like Chitara and Lion-O about to race? And like in your mind as a little kid, like, yo, this chick runs like a lightning bolt. He's never gonna be right. But like, this is the thing about the 80s cartoons. We had like messages in like whatever they were presenting. So everybody knew he couldn't beat Chitara, but she had like this glitch where she would only be super fast for like 2 miles. But then she dusts him for like 2 miles, and Boy's like, this ain't gonna work. I ain't gonna be able to do it. And then she starts realizing she started losing super speed. And he's like, yo, I might lose, but it won't be because I gave up. Like, these kids will have messages like that, like at 7, 8, like you were like, yo, that's all I gotta do is not give up. Shit. Like, yo, we had constant encouragement. So Thundercats, like, you couldn't tell me that wasn't the livest joint back in the day. And it was arguably my number 1, but I had to like give it to something else for a different reason. But Thundercats, definitely.
All right. So for me, my number 3.
From days of long ago, from uncharted regions of the universe, comes a legend. The legend of Voltron, defender of the universe.
Voltron, man.
Oh.
Voltron. And like this was one of those ones, man, where like I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with a couple of them. I think my list changed like 2 or 3 different times, man, when I started like really digging into like just the different cartoons that came out. I was like, oh, I forgot about that one. Oh, I forgot about that one. But now for me, man, Voltron was, I don't know, man. Like I had the entire set, you know what I'm saying? As far as, we talked about the toys a couple of different times. I had the entire set. The joint just sit up on the dresser in me and Nick's room, you know what I'm saying? Like we were scared to touch it because we got it together, we got it to stand up, and it stayed standing up, you know what I'm saying? Like that was a big issue back in the day with the toys. But nah, man, like that was just one of those ones where when I was sitting down putting down this list, I literally thought to myself, what were the cartoons that I had to make sure that I saw? There was some that you could miss. There was some that you could, you know what I'm saying? But like these were the ones that when they came on, I was AIS, ass in seat, watching these joints. You know what I'm saying? And then we just kind of went from there, man. But yeah, I mean, back in the daggone 80s, man, cartoons started at 6 o'clock. They went off at 12:30, 1 o'clock. And it was a half hour. So like you were flipping back and forth between one channel and the other, you know what I'm saying? Because at 7 o'clock, this channel had to join. And at 8 o'clock, this channel had the best ones. And you just kept going back and forth and back and forth. But to me, man, Voltron was just one of those ones where I had to see it, man. I had to see it.
Man, let me tell you a funny story about Voltron. Yeah, and I love that was up. They should have been up there for me too. But back to the whole like figures, like actual figures and stuff. Like my mom, God bless her, yeah, she tried. There was this shop in Mattapan Square that had like, I don't know, it was like clothing in it, so you knew it was already suspect. So she comes home with the whole set, but it's from this store. So I happened to, when I was in Mattapan Square, I checked it, like the store, I'm like, this ain't original. So when she gave it to me, I knew already that it wasn't the right one. It was some bootleg version of the damn Voltron.
Voltron. You got
Oh,
Voltron.
And I couldn't say nothing because I know she worked hard to get it, and I know she went out of her way to do it for me. So I love you, Mom. Thank you. But as soon as I realized it was counterfeit, yo, I was hustling that joint to this kid on another street over, yo. I traded the whole set for like his genuine Constructicon.
Voltran. Sound like a medicine commercial now.
Listen, ever since I was little, y'all was like no nonsense, y'all. I was borderline bougie. I knew when they were I was like, nah, man, I gotta fleece some cat with this real quick. Sure didn't know any better. I got his whole Transformer set, brand new joint for the bootleg Voltran. Sorry, home.
Voltran. All right, so moving on now, we got Royce's number 3.
Mine's on the Thundercats, man. You couldn't go wrong with, like you said, Panthro, Lion-O. It's. I mean, we already touched on it, but I mean, you couldn't go wrong, man. Thundercats. Got to go with it, man.
All right, so moving on now, Ren. We're up to his number 2 pick.
Every kid, or not kid, every man in his 40s right now, probably late freaking 30s, understands the value of G.I. Joe. Like that was not just a cartoon about action and evil and good and none of that, dog. Like they had a freaking moral every time. Like they were constantly telling you stuff about being a better person. But
and no one is half the battle.
Yeah, like even now, that stuff that you say to yourself in the back of your head when like no one else is around, like, yo, like as long as I know, I figure it out. Because that's half the battle. Like they had quotes that resonate with us today as old men, yo, with families. So those cartoons weren't just like visually entertaining. Like they had like a moral like component of just improving young people. They won't get that anymore, man. Like kids are just sucked into whatever they're sucked in right now. But like what we were into, it wasn't just entertainment. Like we were actually learning. So Good Guys, yeah, I've never been a Good Guys fan. I was always with Cobra. Like I like Destro, and Cobra Commander was a whiny punk, but the Baroness was dope. Like They had like Storm Shadow. Storm Shadow was my boy, which was the exact opposite. It was like Snake Eyes. So Snake Eyes was my dude for the Joes because he didn't say anything. Like he's went in there and kicked your ass and he was back to business. Storm Shadow was, I like those characters, man, that like they're morally ambiguous. Like they're not really evil, but they're not really good either. They'll shank you if they have to. So I'm on that camp. So Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, those are my favorite action figures. And the ones I kept to like almost adulthood, like I kept those handy, like before like dating and stuff. Like those were always around, like Condor from Mask. Always carried my Storm Shadow.
Oh, Condor.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. G.I. Joe, dog. We used to have elaborate missions. Like
Right.
we would be
In
on
the
the boat in
mud.
Martha's Vineyard, like in the joyless having missions up and down the boat. It was crazy. Like it
In the
forced
Well,
me
I
to
think
be
I
playing
think
creative.
that's one of the
outside.
things though, man, that kind of like resonates with like you talked about it, man. Like our generation specifically, the toy selection for all the ones we've talked about. It was like, okay, yeah, here it is. This is dope. For G.I. Joe, it was endless.
Endless.
Yeah.
It was endless. You know what I'm saying? So we'll talk a little bit more about G.I. Joe here in a second. But we're moving on to my number 2, man. Transformers. The movies and everything that are out now, and the Beast Wars one is getting ready to, or actually I think it's already dropped if I'm not mistaken. But for me, man, Transformers was just one of those shows, man. And then when the movie dropped,
Man, don't even talk to me about that movie.
it took it to a whole nother level, man. You know what I'm saying? But just the concept behind what these guys were doing, the action scenes and stuff like that. And we'll kind of talk about the movie here in just a bit. But for me, man, Transformers was hands down one of those ones. So we kind of hinted on it a little bit earlier with Mask. And I think the reason why Mask wasn't as successful is because at the same time that Mask dropped, Transformers dropped, and GoBots. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So
Go boss.
you had
Forgot about that.
See,
you
but
had all
GoBots was
three
like
of
the JV
those.
team of the whole robot realm, dog. Like the GoBots. I remember getting those. I was like, what the hell is this? Some imposter?
It's like this big. It's like
Oscars.
you get the daggone Transformer joints, man. And it was like huge. You know what I'm saying? You got the Mass joint again, a decent sized toy. GoBots was essentially a Max box car
Yeah,
that flipped
man.
one way and turned into a robot.
Like, get this out of here, man.
Transformers was like the first type of Rubik's Cube, boy. Like you better know how to move every single one of these pieces in order to be able. You'd be out there playing with Bumblebee, and he only got one arm because you couldn't figure out how to get the other arm out.
Bro.
But yeah, for me, man, Transformers is definitely my number 2.
I mean, just rolling on. Transformers
So
is my
going to
number
yours?
2 also. Yeah, yeah. Transformers is my number 2 also. I mean, you couldn't. And like I said, it's still out today. You were talking about the
Beast Wars movie.
Beast Wars movie. I watched it the other day. So it's still, but mine was, everybody wanted to, like Renee said, you got your villains. I mean, you had Soundwave. Soundwave was dope. He was a
Man.
villain. With Megatron. Starscream was a little punk, but and he had Shockwave.
But he was loyal.
He was loyal, but he was a punk. He was like, hey, cowards can live to fight another day. So, but but yeah, that's my number 2. Also, is definitely Transformers. So,
all right. So going into Renee's number 1 here.
I mean, duh. Like, why wouldn't this be number 1, dude? Like, it had everything in it. It had everything. It had like dope dialogue. It had the dope artwork for back in the 80s. You had these alien beings that could transform into like whips, weapons, cassette tapes, dinosaurs. Like, It was, I don't know what you needed more than Transformers, dude. Like, and I'm definitely a Decepticon person. Like, I would have gotten a Decepticon like icon tattoo, but there's a gang that called the Decepticons, and I don't want to be.
Right.
But if I was gonna be in the gang, it probably would have been me.
That's
But
funny.
no, Megatron is one of my all-time favorite characters, like to this day as an adult. The dude was like a chrome-plated like pistol that would transform and shoot by himself.
Yo, I
When-
remember I had that joint.
Man,
I remember I had that joint.
when you see a gun shooting on its own,
Yeah.
or like flunkies, well, not flunky, because Soundwave was definitely not a flunky. He was probably my second favorite Transformer of all time. It was a freaking cassette tape. And then if you got one, like, yo, you would put cassettes in it. And then he had like the small counterpart cassettes to go with him, like his little croonies,
Transform
like
the daggone
Rumble.
Dope.
joints.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
why, you know, it's like West Side Story for robots and cartoons. You had the freaking, what's the other boy's name? The Shark Show? Nah, like I was
Man, that
definitely a
was dope.
Decepticon because they were probably, as a whole group, the most, they were all black. Like, think about
All right,
it.
so-
Yeah, Megatron, Soundwave, Rumble, Starscream. These sound like black names, and their voices were like intimidating. So I just wanted them to whoop the Autobots' asses on a regular basis. And I never got the gun. Actually, my mother didn't get me the gun because she was highly opposed to weapons. I punked
I
the
had
kid
that.
at a private school that I was at, for his Megatron. And I rocked with that joint forever. Mom didn't know about it, just stayed in the backpack, and I had a nice little snug hiding spot for it. But I didn't like it as much because it had like chips in the paint because it wasn't brand new because I'm stingy.
There it is. See, look, that wasn't too hard, right? Nah, and I think,
know?
man, like for us at that age,
Knowing
dude,
is half the battle.
There it is. Boom. Full circle.
when that movie dropped, though, that movie came to the next level. You know what I'm saying? It had a major character death that threw all of us for a daggone loop. You know what I'm
Traumatizing.
saying? Oh, to this day,
You couldn't tell me
47
what
years
dude-
old, dog. I'm like, yo, what do you mean?
He's like it destroyed all of us, son.
That movie, man, that movie to this, I still watch it. I watch it every couple of months. I'm not even gonna sit here and lie to you. I
That's
watch that
still a
movie
movie.
every couple of months, man. You know what I'm saying?
Good
So,
movie. Good movie. Yeah.
Trivia
I-
for you though.
huh?
Who sung the original song in that joint? Who's the
Oh,
artist?
no, you got me on that one.
Come on, man. Y'all don't know who did that? You know
Rockwell.
the song, though. Rockwell. You got to play that. We got to find that clip. Transformer. That's my joy. That's a joy.
All right, so moving into my number one here. For me, it was G.I. Joe, man. I mean, come on, man. It was the first daggone toy that had Kung Fu grip. I mean, come on, man. Let's talk about it. You know, we've been talking about the toys kind of mirroring, you know what I'm saying, the actual cartoons itself. But dude, I mean, G.I. Joe just went crazy for me. You know what I'm saying? And another one, when the movie dropped, I was just like, oh, okay. And as the show progressed, it started to get a little darker, a little darker, a little darker. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, for me, man, there was zero doubt in my mind when we started putting this list together what my number one and number two was. It was just going to be what the order was going to be. You know what I'm saying? So it was just one of those things, man, where like for me, you know, especially though also because of the military stuff with my dad, you know what I'm saying? It kind of just resonated with me a little bit differently. But yeah, no, G.I. Joe, man, for me was definitely that was my one when it was all said and done. So
Do you remember you used to cut out? Well, I used to do it. You used to cut out the flags on the back and then send them in for like different, like a reward system, kind of. That's how I got a Start the Slaughter. That's how I got my refrigerator Perry.
Mm-hmm.
What else did I get from that?
And I had all of the, remember on the back of the cardboard itself too, man, you had the little
the profile.
The profile.
Yeah.
I actually had a box full of them joints. You know what I'm saying? So because if you traded your character away, you better have a profile to go with it. If the trade was not going to happen. So
I had all of them joints, man. Like that movie wasn't as good as Transformers. I felt bad for them on that. Like Transformers was like epic, and then G.I. Joe was like, that was it to me. I didn't really
Yeah,
buy
I mean,
into the whole Serpentor like he was in.
if you compare the two, then Transformers by far is a better movie. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
Hands down.
even still back in the
Yeah.
day, man, I mean, both of them joints compared to everything else, those two were, you know what I'm saying? They were it for us. But yeah, so
Fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there.
to Royce's number one here.
Definitely G.I. Joe. I mean, yo, Joe Cobra. But the big thing that y'all didn't hit on, so of course, my characters, I like the bad guys. So the Destro, the Zartans, whatever. But Beachhead was dope, Storm Shadow. But what y'all didn't, what really threw that G.I. Joe, the number one for me, man, was the armored vehicles, man. The vehicles that came with it, man. Like, you had the Cobra Hiss, and you had the Dragonfly Chopper, and then you had the daggone Snowcat. But the thing was, you remember the Cobra Commander attack glider that he had, the black and white camouflage thing. But then you had the battle armor for Snake, which was dope, man. So, like, the vehicles is what set it off for me with G.I. Joe, man. I mean, yeah, we had the Kung Fu grip and they had the awesome stuff, but the vehicles, man, because you could get all the vehicles. You had the amphibious personnel carrier, the APC, man.
The hovercraft, yeah.
The hovercraft, the hovercraft. I forgot all about the hovercraft, man. It was game changer for me, man. Like G.I. Joe was a game changer as a toy. Like people say Teddy Ruxpin was a game changer because it was a bear that talked. No, G.I. Joe.
I never got my damn Teddy Ruxpin either.
Yeah, definitely.
All the more reason why you do not need a sword collection.
Yeah.
He's right though. I had the Terradome, the Cobra joint that the jet popped out the center of it. That jet was a joint.
Man, it was the 80s, man. The 80s was the shit, man. I feel sorry for you kids that didn't live through the 80s, man. It's just bad.
Most definitely.
BMX, skateboarding, toys, just
the mall.
The mall.
Yo, like remember leaving the house early in the morning and not coming back until late?
You left at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. You came back for lunch. You left. You came back for dinner. You went out, tried to get a little bit more time in. You know what I'm saying? Before the street lights came on, but when the street lights came on, the streets were empty.
Man.
No, we just had to be in front of the house, man. We still rocking out front, sitting on the daggone mailboxes at Edgefield, man.
It was a sidewalk rule. For us, that's what the rule was. It was a sidewalk rule. My parents had to be able to walk down to the sidewalk in front of the house and look in either direction and be able to see us. So, and I never forget when I moved to Dunedin, I loved it because we lived right on Dunedin Drive and it was long as hell. So I could literally be way up the street, but as long as they could see me, I was good to go.
Yep.
We used to do this thing on Halborn Street, man. Like, and this was part of being a community. We had like one street. And like, when the kids would come in, the parents got together, were like, okay, you guys can play like hide and go seek. And all the adults would just come outside and sit in the front yard at night. And we would be playing hide and seek at night, Like it was scary, but it was fun. Like, the 80s, man. It was just a different time.
Different time period.
All the time because we had to be creative. So, and our toys and our cartoons all coincided with all that. So, a lot of cats in our age group right now, I'm sure if they listen to this, it'll be nostalgic for them as well.
Exactly. So, with that being said, in the comments, leave your favorite cartoon. Leave your favorite toy.
What your top 5 is.
Yeah, let us know what your top 5 is. Exactly. Transformers.
Right,
Still ain't tell us who sings it.
Is you didn't answer the trivia question.
Yeah, who sings it?
Stan Bush.
Huh?
Stan Bush.
Stan Bush.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is Stan Bush?
He's the dude that sang the song.
Well,
you said it like, yeah.
I was expecting
like it was somebody famous. Like,
was it Poison?
Like Poison, Def Leppard. Some hair metal band from the 80s.
I would have known that, man. Damn.
Who the fuck is Stan Bush? I don't know that motherfucker.
Yeah, you know now.